Hey mamas, I cannot wait for you guys to meet Madison, who is a brand new first-time mama. And because of coronavirus, she had to change the location of her birth from a hospital to her home just 6 days before she gave birth to her baby boy. So if you're struggling for direction for where to give birth, Madison shares advice for choosing where to give birth most confidently. I love her birth story, and if you do too, make sure you subscribe, rate, and write a review on the Built to Birth podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, so that each platform knows to share this podcast to more mamas who need to hear these empowering birth stories like Madison's. Madison also shares about how educating herself helped her make the decisions she did for her birth experience. And while the unknown can be scary, the more you know, the less you fear. And if you want to be informed and empowered through your pregnancy and birth, I have an online childbirth education course that will teach you how to have a happier, healthier, and easier birth. So go to the Built to Birth website, which is linked down in the descriptions below, and subscribe to the weekly email so that you can stay up to date on what's happening over at Built to Birth and know when that course is being released. So let's hop into Madison's birth story. Hi, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking this time to connect.
Of course. I'm so excited.
I know. Good. I'm excited too. I can't wait to hear your story. Thanks for reaching out to me on Instagram and sharing a little snippet of your story. And, I just love connecting with moms. And now to be able to share your story with all of us who are going to be listening is just so exciting. So I know it's kind of crazy having a newborn and, finding time away. So thank you so much for taking time to share your story with us.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. Thank you for allowing me to.
Of course. How old is your baby girl?
Boy.
Oh my goodness, baby boy. Okay. I feel like I always assume that it's a girl because I have a girl.
It's okay.
I don't know. Baby boy.
It's okay. He is 5 weeks old and I can't believe it. I feel like he's just growing so quickly and I'm trying to capture the moments. I'm looking forward to the milestones, but at the same time, I'm like, stop, slow down, please. Yeah.
I know. It goes by so fast. Yeah, even now, I'm with my daughter, I'm like, how are you already almost 2? I feel like I was just pregnant. Yeah, it's crazy. It goes by so fast. So enjoy these newborn stages.
Thank you. Trying to.
Yeah, I know. Amidst all the sleeplessness and figuring life out, it's hard to sometimes really enjoy the moment, but I hope you're able to find some of those moments to really just love and enjoy and find a lot of just excitement in seeing your little baby be him. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Well, thanks again for being with us. Why don't you share with us a little bit about yourself, your family, and kind of you finding out you're pregnant, all of that kind of leading up to your birth experience?
Sure. So my husband and I live in Ontario, Canada. We've been here for a few years. He came from British Columbia to plant a church with his family. So they're here church planting. It's been really exciting doing that together. His name is Micah. We had Micah March 27th. And it was super exciting. But before that, I had 2 losses. So first trimester losses. So that kind of, for me, kind of made what this whole experience was. The first loss, I believe I was around 5 weeks, and that was in 2018. And the second, I was 11 weeks with a miscarriage, and that was in 2019. So having Micah and just experiencing that, the whole process with, battling anxiety and really trying to stay at peace was a real struggle. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, that is. And thank you for sharing that with us. I feel like pregnancy loss is not talked about a lot. And, when it happens to you, you feel like you can't talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. And then when you finally open up, it's crazy how many moms experience it, and you don't know until you open up. And so thank you for sharing that with us. I know that is That's a tough journey to be on. And, when you do get pregnant, I had a pregnancy loss as well. So, your story resonates with me. And, when you do get pregnant, every step of the way, you're right. You're battling that anxiety. You're battling that fear in your mind, just wondering, is something going to happen? Am I safe? Is my baby safe?
Exactly.
And it can sometimes rob a little bit of the joy of being pregnant because you don't want to, you're scared to be too happy in case something happens.
Exactly. It's like you're wanting to protect yourself. But that's how I felt. And for me at the same time, I was like, but, going through this, my mentality was if Micah ends up staying and, comes out of my womb, then I'm going to look back on my pregnancy and know that I didn't enjoy it. So that was like, it was such a battle it was like back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know exactly what I mean by that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think a lot of moms who are listening to this, I think we all can, resonate on some level with just that battling between, being so excited and being so like in love and still having those fears along the way. What did you do during your pregnancy that kind of helped you remain joyful and excited about, that pregnancy and that birth?
Well, I'm a follower of Jesus. So reading my Bible and just, worship and prayer, that was my rock. Jesus was my rock through everything. And my husband was such an encouragement for me. And also my family doctor was so incredible. Like my last pregnancy, my loss, she saw me like weekly just to see me, would call me and say, how are you doing? Which was so cool. So I had an amazing support. I'm so thankful because I know a lot of women, don't always get that. And my heart goes to them that, grieve the loss and maybe don't have family around them. I'm so thankful I had that support around me because I don't know what I would have done if I didn't. Because it's a real process, We got pregnant with Micah. I believe it was 5 months after the loss. We named our baby Winter in February, I believe it was. So it was a real journey. It was a real journey. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So when you found out you were pregnant with Micah, were you guys trying to get pregnant again, or was it like a little bit of a surprise? Or
I had a feeling I would be pregnant. We weren't really trying, but we weren't not trying. My heart was kind of in this weird place of desiring, like what we were saying. I'm desiring to be pregnant and desire to have life in my womb, but the idea of loss is terrifying. So I'd say we were just being, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes when we finally let go, I feel like when things happen that we weren't necessarily expecting to happen, I feel like that's the story for a lot of women too, they are trying for so long. And then when they're finally like, okay, whatever happens, let's just be. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, we're pregnant. How did that happen? And so everyone has a different journey.
It's so hard not to like obsess over it too. With every little cramp, with any little symptom, you're like, oh my goodness, am I pregnant? And then I didn't want to be disappointed. So it was that too. It's like, it was so weird. It's like, I don't want to be, get my hopes up too much to be pregnant, but then I don't want to be sad. It was just it was a weird place. Yeah.
It's a journey, like you said. And so again, thank you for sharing that. I know that's a vulnerable part of life. And so, I think it is going to be a big encouragement. It's an encouragement for me, and I think it will be for all these moms who are listening as well.
I'm so glad we can talk about it. It's not talked about enough. I agree.
Yes. Yeah, totally. I remember when I had a miscarriage, I had no idea how many families around me and women that I looked up to and peers even had gone through the same thing. And I was like, I felt like I would have been someone that they could have told, or we could have talked about it,
Yeah.
But a lot of times that door isn't open until it's an experience that you have. And so again, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for sharing yours too. Thank you for being vulnerable. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So once you found out you were pregnant, what were kind of the things that you did throughout your pregnancy to prepare you for labor? Was it something that you were nervous about, or was it something you were really excited about, or a little bit of both? But what were your emotions during your pregnancy leading up to birth, and what did you do to kind of prepare?
Yeah, I was really excited. I think because of the previous losses, it kind of had a toll on the idea of delivery, thinking of like the extreme happening. So that was kind of difficult to push past my mind and be like, no, it doesn't have to happen. I don't have to lose this baby too. There's good that can come. But I think I've always just kind of had an interest in like labor and delivery and pregnancy. Even when I was a little girl, I just always drew to the moms and the babies, and I loved hearing about breastfeeding and pregnancy. So even before I was pregnant, even before I was married, I loved watching videos and reading and hearing stories about experiences. So I'd say it started before I was even married, just kind of preparing myself mentally. If that sounds funny. But and then when I was pregnant with Micah, especially, I was really, trying to be on it. I really wanted to try to have an epidural-free birth, an unmedicated birth. And I told some people that, and they kind of laughed at it and were kind of like, oh, you can't do that. Like me, I'm a wimp. Like if I stub my toe, it's the end of the world. So I think people thought, oh, Madison, like, don't get your hopes up. If you can't do it, you can't do it. I'm like, guys, come on, let's be a little more encouraging over here. So I think for me, I really wanted to get a hold on like my mentality. You know what I mean? Like I really wanted to know that birth is such a mental thing. And I wanted to know and be equipped for when I was in labor and pushing Micah, that I would train my mind to breathe a certain way, to think a certain way, and to just discipline myself mentally. So,
Yeah. And I think that sometimes, for moms, it's like, what can I physically prepare for labor? And you're right. Like it is such a mental game. And so in a lot of ways, it's because your body was built to do it. If you were asleep and, you just had to, and your body just had to do it, your body would give birth to your baby,
Which is so amazing to me.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's so like wild to think about. But you're exactly right. Like it is such a mental game, and like preparing your mind, equipping your mind so that you are able to trust your body in that process is a huge factor in preparing for birth. So what were some things that you did to kind of equip that mindset, if you will, during your pregnancy to prepare for birth?
Yeah. I think, again, it was a lot of watching videos. Like I was binging like your videos and Sarah Levon for like weeks. And just, watching videos. I went to a birthing class, but I don't know, like I found the birthing class, it was good and I enjoyed it, but I just like to binge watch things and write it down. And I don't know, I watched a lot of videos and learned about breathing. I remember watching your video about the breathing, and it was a J breathing. And I really, really tried to hang on to that and remember it, because I remember my husband bringing home like a birthing ball from work, and he's like, we have this in storage, do you want it? I'm like, yes. So he brought it home. And I remember for quite a few weeks in the third trimester, I would just be on the ball for like hours and practice different positions and breathing, and put the video on my big screen on my TV and kind of follow along. And I really wanted to practice, and because I didn't really want to be playing videos during my labor. So I'm like, hey, Madison, you gotta study. Because I really, really, really wanted to try. I didn't want to feel like I was at like a halt in my labor. I really wanted to try and push as much as I could.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like it's all that education, it's that practice that you have beforehand. And that's, I think, so important, because the more that you practice beforehand, the more you're actually going to do it in labor. Did you feel that was the case for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened was, so I had a home birth, That wasn't my original plan. My original plan was to labor at home as long as possible and then go to the hospital. And then COVID happened. And I tried not to be fearful, but as things were going on and I'm reading forums on different websites and hearing different women's experiences, not being able to be in the room, their moms not being able to be in the room, it really influenced me. I'm super close with my mom, and her and I have dreamed of the idea of being in the room, like since I was little.
Yeah.
So I didn't get that, and that's okay. Because everything worked out. But what happened was I chose the midwifery route. And I've heard from so many women different stories about being in a birthing center or being at home. And I think there's kind of this idea that people have that it's so unsafe, that it's dangerous, that it's not wise to. And I think for a time in my life, I really considered it to be that way until I talked to my midwife. And I asked her, I said, so if this happens and this happens, like if there's hemorrhaging, if baby's heart rate goes down, she really educated me. Like, I don't know what I would have done without my midwives, truly, because she really educated me and encouraged me to say, like, we literally have a level 1 hospital in our bags with us when we come to see you. Yeah. And I remember getting home from my appointment and talking to my husband, and there was kind of like some fear and some hesitance in his eyes when I offered the idea to him. And this was literally like, I think less than 2 weeks before I delivered. Like, it was very last minute we decided. Yeah. So, and I figured if I'm planning to labor at home as long as possible, and I remember reading that when you're anxious, it kind of can stall your labor. And I remember thinking that and thinking, oh my goodness, like, I don't want to be in a hospital and be panicky or uncomfortable because I'm not at home. And I thrive in my home. I'm like a homebody. Yeah. So, I chose home birth. And it was a beautiful experience. I'm very thankful I did.
How did you get your husband on board? You said he was a little bit hesitant. How did you guys kind of come to a place where you were on the same page about that home birth?
Yeah, my midwife actually gave me some resources to look up online, and we kind of just laid in bed and watched a bunch of videos describing like the experience, explaining how the process goes, the difference between choosing hospital and home birth, and kind of the statistics with it. Reading that and watching it with him, I think within the first video, he's like, okay, we can do this. And he asked me questions, but I asked my wife, like, what if you hemorrhage? What if baby's heart rate drops? And I gave him all the information that she gave me. And he's like, well, why not? You know, if we have the flexibility to go to the hospital, it's 10 minutes away, then okay. But knowing that we have incredible midwives that are so educated and could do resuscitation even, I think he felt a lot more comfortable. Yeah.
I think that's huge, is educating yourself on the risks and the benefits of no matter where you give birth, because there are risks and benefits no matter where you give birth. And so finding out what aligns with your goals is a really big thing, and discovering for yourself and educating yourself on, you know, what it's like to give birth in different locations. And what would you say is the most important thing for a mom who is kind of dealing, because a lot of moms are, you know, deciding, should I have a home birth now because of all of the changing hospital policies because of the coronavirus? Like, what would you say? What would be one piece of advice that you could give to a mom who's kind of debating whether or not to have a hospital or a home birth?
Number one, it would be know that whatever outcome you get, it's beautiful. There is no birth that's greater than the other, and you're not, you know, weak if you choose a certain route or have something go wrong on your birth plan. Like, my midwife encouraged me to call it a preference because things happen. My piece of encouragement would really be to prioritize what you and your spouse or your partner, or if you're alone, what you want, what's important to you. Are you desiring to have like a pain-free, like medicine-free birth? Are you more open to an epidural? Are you super adamant about not getting it? what are your ideas for pain relief? I'd say really look at your priorities, look at what you're comfortable with, because if you're uncomfortable with the idea of, for example, a home birth, that might not be the option for you, because it really can stall you. Your body responds best when you're calm and relaxed. So really look at your priorities on your list, and what's important would be my piece of advice for sure.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much. And I think you're exactly right. Like, I've worked with families who prefer to go into the hospital like earlier rather than later, because that's where they feel safest. And so I always, advocate to go to the place, be around the people you want to be around, who are going to make you feel safe and comfortable and confident. Because like you said, that's what's going to help labor progress. Because when you're in an environment where you don't feel those things, your body's not going to be as relaxed as it could be. And so it can be more challenging. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
I think something to add on to this too is, actually, the day before I gave birth, I was in the hospital in triage to be tested for cholestasis. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Cholestasis,
Yeah. And I was in there for 4 hours. My husband wasn't allowed in, which was really difficult, because I know it's just a test, but it was crazy, because what happened was they tested me, but they let me know that the test results would be back within 24 hours. So the idea of not having them, if I did have cholestasis, I didn't, which was wonderful. But if I did, was really unsettling. So what ended up happening was an OB had to come in and check me to see if I was dilated at all, because if I needed to be induced, she kind of wanted an idea. So when she checked me, I was 1 and she put me at a 2. So I think why I'm saying that is because when I was even in there, they asked me about having an induction. And for me personally, that's not what I wanted. And my husband wasn't really on board with the idea either, unless it was obviously necessary. But was unsettling was that he couldn't even be there. So my phone was literally at 4%, dying. I didn't have a charger, and I'm calling him like, babe, should I get an induction? What should I do? And he wasn't in, like he couldn't be in. He was in the parking lot. I was so panicked. And just for me, I just felt so uncomfortable. And the idea of just thinking, man, I could be like home in my bed. I could just be snuggled in my blankets, and that's just where I feel comfortable. I think that really like hit it for me the day before. Just that made my decision. Like it was a great team. The hospital, that like here where I live, they're incredible. I just knew that, man, like I really feel uncomfortable. I'm not in my element right now, even for testing.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's so individualized, like what doesn't feel right for you could feel right for someone else.
Exactly.
And so I think it is discovering what those options are and then figuring out what is best for you. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So you said you had that test done at the hospital, and then the next day wow. So why don't you share with us that story?
It was
your
crazy.
Birth story.
So what happened was, I was there for 4 hours. I don't remember when I got home. I'd say 5-ish. And I asked the OB and I said, do you think, because I was super hopeful. I was 38 weeks and 5 days, I believe. And I was like, man, like, do you think at all I could be going into labor? She's like, honey, you could be at a 2 for weeks. Don't get your hopes up. I'm like, okay. So super bummed. I went home. It was like 5, 6 at night, and I started to have like cramping, but I had Braxton Hicks weeks, month. I'm like, okay, it's kind of like that. I don't want to look into it. I don't want to get obsessed, because I can do that. Yeah. So my husband and I put on a movie, just tried to relax, made some dinner, and it got a little stronger, but to me it felt like gas pain. So I was kind of in denial, but I just started to track it a little bit. So as night went on, by 11 o'clock at night, I think they were about 10 to 8 minutes apart, lasting for about a minute. And I tried, again, not to think about it, put it to bed. So we ended up going to bed. I went to bed at 1 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. And then I woke up at 2:30 with like, I literally shot up out of my bed, and I was like, oh my goodness, that was a contraction. And my husband's looking at me like, no, you're fine. Like, you're fine. I'm like, no, babe, like that was a contraction.
Are you feeling what I'm feeling?
He's like, babe, you're fine. I'm like, no. So I called my mom, And I was telling her what I was describing. I'm like, okay. She's like, why don't you time them? I'm like, okay. So I timed them. They were 3 minutes apart, 2 minutes apart, 3 minutes apart. She's like, honey, you need to call the midwife. And I'm like, I don't know. It's probably just gasping. She's like, hun, like it's not gasping. Like you're in labor. And I was in so much denial because I wanted Micah here so bad. And I didn't want to get my hopes up. Even though 3 minutes apart is pretty telling. So I called my midwife by like 3:30, and I remember calling the paging line, and the lady was like, okay, why are you calling? Who are your midwives? And I told her, and I just remember stopping like 3 times and breathing. And I didn't even have to tell her why I was calling because she knew. She's like, okay, I'm going to call your midwife. I was in so much pain. So my midwife called me back, and I told her, because I was in contact with her the night before about the cholestasis. And she asked me how far apart they were, and I said, oh, they're 3 minutes. She's like, I'm coming over right now. I'm like, okay. She's like, we're gonna have a baby today. I'm like, really? Okay. So she came over, and when she checked me, I was already at a 5. So
oh my goodness, wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So when she got there, you were 5 centimeters. Then what were you doing to find ways to relax and cope with the surges?
Yeah, I immediately grabbed my ball and I started bouncing, and I put some music on. My mom was on FaceTime because she couldn't be here. My mom was on FaceTime the whole time, just watching me and encouraging me as my husband's like running around getting things ready. I was just trying to breathe. I found that humming and playing music really helped calm me down. And I really didn't want to sit too much. Like I really wanted to try and get it out and just be active. And it was like 4 a.m, so I wasn't going to go for a walk around my neighborhood. So I literally just did like laps around my house and just went up and down the stairs, like stopping between like at certain doors during my contractions, just like hanging on the hinges. I find that breathing just really helped me, and the bouncing, the movement. I found that when I sat too long, I felt like I was like in a weird, if this makes any sense, like sitting in my pain. I felt like moving really helped me a lot.
Yeah, it released it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like most of the time that's what the instinct is to move, it's to get up, it's to use gravity. I feel like that's normally the case. I know that's not for everyone, but I think it's responding to what your body is telling you and responding to what it needs.
Yeah.
So
I found
after you're
on my hands and knees. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh,
I was going to say, I found that being on my hands and knees was like my favorite thing, where I was on my knees and then would throw my belly like over the ball and just hang there. It felt so good. So good.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that.
And that's great. And that's a really nice one too, because then you're not like, I feel like it is more supportive than if you're just doing your hands and knees and all of your body's pressure and weight is on your hands and knees. And that way you're on the ball. And I feel like it makes it a little bit easier on your body. Did you feel that way?
Totally. Definitely. Yeah. Because I found during the whole time, I was using a lot of strength, like in this arm specifically. I remember a week after, the first like 3 days, I literally couldn't put it out straight. It was so sore because when I was pushing, I was hanging on so tight. So it felt really good. It definitely helped. Great.
So then what happened after your midwife had checked you and your 5 centimeters dilated? What was the timeline between then and when you had Micah?
Yeah. So I had Micah at, I think it was 11:10 in the afternoon. I remember looking at my midwife after she checked me, and I was like, so what now? What do? You're just going to sit there? She's like, yeah, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to grab a blanket and just watch you. If you need me, I'm just here for you. I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, you do your thing. You listen to your body. You do what you want. So they just kind of followed me around. It was really funny. They just kind of followed me around the whole entire house. It really, really picked up in intensity. So she checked me, I think it was about every 15 minutes. She checked Micah, the heart rate and everything, and he kept moving down. And she checked me at one point, and she said to me, honey, like, he's really low. You're going to have a baby really soon. And I said, oh, okay. Oh my goodness. Well, I feel it. And at one point, I remember, I think I was around 8 or 9 centimeters dilated. I had such an urge to push. It was intense. And she told me, well, you can't, but we can like do different positions to help you. And I remember at that point is when it was like, things went into overdrive in my body. At that point, at 8 and 9 centimeters, I felt like my body totally took over in a sense that I can't even describe. My body just went into overdrive. So I ended up getting sick to my stomach. And I knew that when that happened and I was crying out saying, I can't do this anymore. I need something. I knew that I was close. So when I said that, I was kind of excited, but like so much pain. I was like, okay,
I feel like your whole story, it's like this weird balance between like feeling one way but not wanting to feel it. So you're just always like counter. So it's like, I'm happy I feel this way, but I also, don't want to feel this way.
Exactly. So I was excited. I remember at one point, like before I was 8 or 9 centimeters, I remember standing there through a contraction. I was seriously talking to myself saying, I have a video of it saying, Madison, you're fine. You're built to do this. You're good. And then I get out of the contraction. I'm like, so what are we going to do now? It was insane. It was crazy.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So at that point, after I got sick, I really feel like things got really intense, and to the point where I felt like I almost couldn't even carry my own body. Like I just felt so exhausted, so heavy. So I remember just kind of going on all my fours. She had this, not like a ball. It was like some object to lay yourself on. I know.
Yeah.
I think
was
you know
it
what
like
I mean.
a inflated, like
it was some like
inflated,
plastic
like
thing.
Like a seat almost?
Yeah.
I forget what they're called, but I know what you're talking about. I think it's almost like a birthing stool. Like you can use it for all these different things, but it's like you could sit on it. It's almost like a U shape, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she grabbed that. She said, it was great. She's like, do you want to use it? And I kind of looked at it. It looked weird. And I was like, sure. I mean, if it's going to help me, absolutely.
Yeah.
So she grabbed it and I just laid on my living room floor with it. And I begged her to check me how far along I was. And she told me, I don't remember, I think I was about a 9. And I asked if I could start pushing. And she said, no, not yet. I know it's really hard right now, but you can't yet. And I think that was honestly the hardest part for me, was being told, no, you can't push yet. And I was begging her. So she checked me and she said, here's what we're going to do. It's up to you. Because my water hadn't broken at this point. She said, we can break your water because he is so close. Like it's so close for him to be able to come down. You just have the smallest bit of water that's blocking it. And then when it's gone, it's going to really help.
Yeah.
So I kind of sat there and I was like, well, nothing's happening. I'm already like 9 centimeters. He's like, my water isn't breaking. So go ahead. So she did. And I always, TMI, but I just always imagine this like massive amount of water coming out. I didn't even feel it. It was so small. And I kind of freaked out. I'm like, is that normal? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Like part of me was wondering and part of me was like, I'm not going to think about that right now. Like I'm focusing on labor.
Yeah.
So after she broke my water, it really picked up because she told me it's going to pick up. I'm like, oh, how much more is it going to pick up? Because,
like I'm already dealing with what I feel like is the most.
Yeah. And she's like, well, it's just going to go really fast. Like we're so close. She was so amazing, just encouraging me. So at that point, I was upstairs in my bed for good. Like I was not moving around. And it's funny because I was so excited to use the tub. I was so excited because my plan was to go in the hospital. I was so excited to use the birthing tub and I never went in the tub. So I think it's funny how we have this idea of what we'll like music. I made like a 170 song list of like worship music and I didn't even hear it because I was like so in the moment.
So focused.
Right. So it was after my water broke. I think she broke my water around like 9:30, 10 o'clock. Cause I remember looking over at the clock. And then I was begging her to push and she let me kind of practice pushing a bit and it was wonderful. It was so good.
Yeah, I know. Finally being able to like give in to what your body is telling you to do is like such a relief instead of like trying. Cause it is, like you said, it's like an indescribable feeling where you're just like, your body is taking over for you.
It really
to not be able to like say, okay, let's push. It's like so challenging.
I was like, I'm struggling over here. Yeah, it was amazing.
So then how long did you push for?
I pushed for 20 minutes. So I guess, I don't know if it's different in the States, but so it was just the one midwife with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to practice pushing for a bit. And then I'm going to call the other midwife for her to be here to assist me. I was like, okay, great. I don't really care. Just let's go. So I was pushing and pushing. And I guess she kind of, I remember looking up at her and she was like, oh, okay, like he's coming. And I remember her talking to my husband a bit saying, you know, we kind of expect for first time moms to go a little longer, like after, I think she said up to 3 hours. So he was coming, like he was head out ready. And, she had to get my husband to take the phone, and she's like, okay, Justin, you need the time when he comes out, because like I need hands right now, because she like the other midwife did not make in time. So what happened was, I remember, I'll never ever forget this, and I tell every woman I tell my story to this, that some point when I was pushing, I remember pushing so hard that after I pushed, I shot up. And I was like, that wasn't me. That it was so weird. I was like, I felt like some warrior woman just like came out of me. Like it was like, I felt like I can't even explain it, Bridget. Like I felt like when I pushed, it wasn't me. It wasn't my body. I just felt like my body just did it. I don't know. I can't explain it.
No, it's that primal part of you. And it is like a different part of like women. Like we don't normally see this strength. And like that's a lot of strength that it takes to labor and birth a baby. Yeah. And like that's not everyday strength. You know, that's something that takes over from our hormones and from that primal part of our brain that needs to come out in the process of labor in order for us to have that kind of strength. And I think a lot of women don't recognize their own strength because it isn't like a strength that they're used to. It's like, it is like a different person comes out almost.
I feel like I always heard women say, oh, your body really takes over and your body knows what to do. And I always was curious about what they meant by that. And it wasn't until that moment that I was like, this is that saying right now. This is that moment where your body takes over. And what you said earlier, you could be sleeping and your body just knows what to do, because I'll just never forget that push. Like it just really was eye-opening to me. It was awesome. Yeah.
Was it that push that like birthed Micah?
No, I think it was a few pushes after that.
Okay.
I think that's when it really started to get like, she's like, okay, you can push like 1, 2, 3. That's when that happened. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. So, I mean, 20 minutes is a pretty short time to push, like you said, especially for a first-time mom. And so that's amazing.
Thank you. It was really cool. I know it wasn't until after, again, my midwife was so incredible. She was like, you did that. Do you realize that some women get this? I'm like, no, I didn't know. She's like, you just pushed him out like you had 3 babies. And they really encouraged me, because I remember afterwards just feeling like, oh my gosh, I did that. I felt like I was on top of the world, because I was told by people, no, you can't. I literally made a bet with someone saying, they were like, oh, I'll bet you that you actually can't. Like, I'll bet you $100. And I didn't actually do it. But they're like, you can't, like, there's no way you can, like, you react to like the smallest bit of pain. So when I did that, I just have never felt so, I just never felt so proud and happy and euphoric, knowing that number one, I felt like some type of breakthrough having Mikey here as my rainbow baby, like having him finally here after the 2 losses and dreaming about what that would be like. It was finally here. And then you have that side, and then you have the side of my body just did that. And we're incredible. We don't realize how strong we are. And I was just so overwhelmed. I still get overwhelmed, if you can't tell. Like it's so unbelievable to me that our bodies are created to do this, and that it knows how to work itself. And when things happen, it will go another way. It's just, it's incredible.
Yeah. And I think it's so powerful to see you still kind of like look and feel euphoric over that experience. And I think that's what's so cool, is that like for women, like birth is not something that we just have to do, that we just have to get through. Birth is something that we can like feel euphoric and so empowered by and carry that with us for the rest of our lives. Like I would bet you anything that in 10 years you're going to look back on this birth experience and you're still going to be like, oh my gosh, like that was so cool. That was the best feeling, meeting Micah for the first time. Like, and we get to carry that for the rest of our lives. And that's why it's so special to have an empowered birth experience.
Yeah, that was so important to me because I remember, I think Sarah Levon mentioning about, I think it was, struggle versus something. It was about how you can like suffer. Oh, it was like suffering.
Yes. It's like suffering versus pain.
Yes. And I just remember thinking like, I don't want to suffer. Pain is okay. And just because it's hard doesn't mean it's impossible, and hard isn't a bad thing. But I don't want to look back. I just remember feeling for so long, I don't want to look at my birth experience and be traumatized or, look back and think that was a horrible time. Because with this COVID stuff, I really worried about looking back at this time, even postpartum, thinking this was a horrible time. Like I can't see family. I can't do anything really. But I'm really trying to turn that around and say, well, no, it actually blessed me because I get to spend more alone time with Micah and develop that strong, close, intimate bond with him with no distractions around. Like this is really forcing people to calm down, to kind of take every moment by it is and every moment day by day and be thankful. So
Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of blessings in disguise right now with the pandemic happening. There was a study done in the UK recently where they found that babies are returning back to their birth weight within I think 3 to 5 days, whereas usually it's like 7 days, 7 to 10 days back to their birth weight. And they're just saying it's because moms are stuck at home without that constant stream of visitors coming, which is good in itself. We love showing our babies off to people. We love having that, having the grandparents come over and our friends come over and those aunties and uncles. But they're just seeing having that strict rest and bonding time for moms and babies is actually showing improvements. And so I feel like there are a lot of cool things that are happening in our very modern and rushed world today, where this crisis is just being hey, spend time with your family unit, work through things that you need to work through, bond with your spouse, bond with your kids. And I think, you're exactly right that there are challenges, but there are also lots of little glimmers of joy and hope in all of this. So
absolutely.
What was your experience for women who are thinking about a home birth or maybe struggling with what is a home birth like? What did your initial postpartum hours after you had Micah, what did those look like at home?
Yeah. So after the second midwife came, which was, I want to say roughly 15, 20 minutes after he was born, she was the one helping me, the one that was late. She was the one helping me get in the tub, and I wasn't expecting to kind of get clean, but they were really encouraging me to. So I think it was about an hour and a half after we'd done skin to skin and breastfeeding, which I was so excited about, after I got his latch and all that stuff. My midwife took me and she took me to the tub and she was like, "Let's get you cleaned off, Mama. You're doing a great job. You did awesome." The whole time during my shower, she was like, "You did awesome. I wasn't here, but you're incredible. You're amazing." And it made me feel so good. So I got my shower, and she helped me get dressed, and she was so sweet. She brought me back. So we did the delayed cord clamping, which was really cool. And I got to see my placenta, and it was so cool. It looked like the tree of life, and it was so amazing looking at it and just knowing that's where he got all his nutrition and where he was growing and thriving. It was really cool. I got my stitches and all of that, and we just laid together, and it was so nice just being in my own bed and just laying there with my husband and my sweet baby, and just not even caring, they're cleaning up the room for us. It was so cool, cleaning up things and just encouraging us just to bond and not do anything else. So they kind of cleaned up, and that's when she took me to the shower. So I love that my midwives really encouraged me to have that bond and to like not focus on anything else and just to be in the moment with him. And I'm so glad that I had pictures. Like, we obviously couldn't have a photographer, but my mom was on the other end of like our side table on FaceTime. So she has things recorded. And then my husband, we started taking pictures. And I even look back at the pictures now and just seeing him with everything on him and me, like sweaty and all gross, but just beauty of what that moment was. And that's when, you know, like I became a mother, like truly, that I feel like his birth birthed something out of me in a sense too. But I love looking at those pictures and just remembering the memories, because it really does. Like, it really does make me like, because it was so cool.
Giddy. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. And I think that's what's so nice about a home birth too, is like just being in the comfort of your own home after having a baby, you know, is just like so nice. You know, if that's what you want. And some, like we said at the beginning, some moms will want that and some moms won't. But that is one thing that is nice, like to be in your own bed just sounds amazing.
And I will say that it was also amazing having them come to me for the appointments. I didn't have to leave the house. And
so your postpartum visits.
It was amazing.
Visits, they were able to come to you.
They would call me and say, okay, we're coming in. I'm like, okay, the door's unlocked. I am in my pajamas. And I remember once apologizing. I shouldn't have, because I had a baby, but I was like, I'm sorry for the mess. And my midwife like looks me straight in the eyes and she's like, if it was clean, I would be worried. If it was clean in here, I would question a lot. And I was like, okay, good. It was so awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think, again, it's just a matter of having a birth team that you trust, whether you're at your home or in a hospital or a birth center, wherever you're at, just having a care team that you trust and who respects you and that you respect them. I think that's such a huge thing.
So important. And even now, I have an appointment next week, and I don't know if it's going to be my last one. I think it's my second last, but I just, like, I don't want to leave them. It's like, I always want to be pregnant again just to hang out with them.
So he's 5 weeks old, right?
He is, yes.
So you're 5 weeks postpartum, and how many visits have you had from your midwives?
Because of the COVID stuff, there's a lot of phone visits now, so that makes it a little. I'd say I had, I think, three or four at home, and then I had one in clinic.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was amazing.
Because typically in a hospital birth, you have your baby, you go home, and you don't see your OB for another 6 weeks, and that's it, you know? And so, and we are getting checkups all throughout our pregnancy, you know? And then all of a sudden, we have this incredible, crazy transition. You know, we're dealing with hormones, we're dealing with breastfeeding, we're dealing with sleeplessness, all of these things. And it's like, okay, I'll see you in 6 weeks, and then never after that, you know? And so that's awesome that you are able to have such great care from your midwives.
And knowing that I could call them at any time for the paging. I remember, for example, there was one night where I was so hormonal. I think it was night 4 or night 3 is when they told me it would be the most rough. And I remember Micah, my husband changed his diaper, and he had what they call brick dust, which is like there's like a powdery substance that comes out if they're breastfeeding for their urine. And my husband's like, he was so calm, but he's like, oh babe, like it looks like there's something red. And I freaked out. I was like, what do you mean? Oh my gosh. And I'm like panicking, and I call, and they're like, no, hon, he's okay. That happens. It's called brick dust. And they're just so patient. The amount of times that I would just call them, and they're like, hey, what's up? The one time I remember texting, and I felt so bad doing this, but I texted my midwife on her personal phone. She's like, girl, you can text me anytime. It's fine. I'm like, okay. It was so cool.
That's so amazing. That's amazing. And I hope that's an encouragement for all the moms listening too, who are making those last minute changes to where it's a birth experience that they didn't expect. You know, if it is changing to a home birth all of a sudden, that, you know, it can be a really great experience, even though it was an unexpected one. And so I think that is going to be an encouragement for all these moms who are listening. Before we wrap up, what's one piece of advice or encouragement you could give to moms who are approaching their birth experience?
Let go of your own expectations, because things, whatever happens. But just because you let go doesn't mean you're still in control of your body. Like, you are still capable. Just because things don't maybe go the way you're expecting, you're still a warrior woman. You're still giving birth, and you're still experiencing the most joyful, incredible gift of life ever. And no matter how your birth looks, no matter if it's by C-section, vaginal, whatever happens with epidural or not, you are incredible, and your body's made to do this. And give yourself so much grace. So much grace. You don't have to have it all together. Give yourself grace. That's honestly something that I could just rave about. Give yourself so much grace in these days of especially COVID, because postpartum is hard enough. And then now you put COVID on top of it. Just be patient with yourself. That's what I'd say to mamas. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That is such an encouragement. And you're exactly right. Postpartum is a challenge. A lot of moms prepare for the birth and don't necessarily prepare for that postpartum period. And especially right now during coronavirus. But I think it is a matter of giving yourself the patience and the time to experience this big transition, and forgive your partner, forgive yourself, let your baby figure it out. Exactly. Let it all go. Absolutely. And so that's a great piece of advice and encouragement. And thank you again for hopping on this, on our podcast and sharing your story with us. It was an honor hearing it.
And thank you for being, honestly, Bridget, thank you for being such an encouragement through YouTube. Thank you for letting me on here, because your videos, honestly, I really believe you, whether you know or not, had a huge part in my birth story because of your time that you put into making these videos to encourage mamas. You really, really helped me. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And I think anytime as women and moms we can lift each other up, we should take that opportunity to do that. And so, if you're listening to this now, then, mamas, make sure that you are lifting each other up. And Madison, thank you for encouraging me. Thank you for encouraging all these mamas who are listening. So I hope you have a great rest of the day. Enjoy your newborn snuggles from Micah.
Thank you.
Seriously. And let your husband know that we are so thankful for taking up your time.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, Madison.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too. Well, mamas, I hope you were so encouraged by Madison's birth story, and know that no matter where you give birth, whether that's a hospital, home, or birth center, or what kind of birth you have, whether that's medicated or non-medicated or anything in between, it can be a beautiful experience. She talked about creating a positive mindset for birth and how crucial it is for an empowering birth experience. So if you want to build up your confidence in your ability to birth and to be a mama, you can purchase and download the Built to Birth affirmation meditations through my website that I have linked down below in the descriptions. And if you want to learn more about how to build up your mind, body, and team to experience that happier, healthier, and easier birth, I have an online childbirth education course coming out so soon. So again, make sure you head over to my website and subscribe to that weekly email so that you are staying up to date on information and videos that are coming out, as well as when that course is being released. So thanks so much for being with me in this podcast, and I'll see you in the next one.